The goal of this next example is to look at a larger data set and look at these things like cases, variables, and whether or not the variables are quantitative or categorical. Every semester when I teach Stat 145 in the face-to-face format, at the beginning of the semester, I have the students fill out a survey and I upload that data into SPSS so that we can use SPSS and look at that data in class and get a feel for how we do various things in SPSS on a larger data set. So here is the data set that I used back in fall 2018, data collected from the students. I asked them various questions like what's your age, what's your height, how many times a week do you eat breakfast, how many credits are you taking, things like do you doodle in your class notes, are you a morning person, various different variables, just so we have a large data set to work with and look at. So the first thing we can see is if we scroll down, we can see how many students are in this data set. So there's a total here of 66, so that's our number of cases. And then we could go through and look at the number of variables by looking and counting all these, but it does tell us on the bottom, which I don't know if we can see it right now, how many, or we can go down here to variable view. So we can see there's 40 different variables. So in SPSS, one important thing to note is there's two tabs on the bottom. The data view lets you actually look at the data. The variable view lets you change things about the variables. So you can change the names of them here. There are actually labels as to the questions that were answered here, how they're coded. For example, if we look at grade classification, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We can tell from here that that coding is 1 is freshman, 2 sophomore, 3 is junior, 4 is senior. So there's a bunch of information about the variables in the variable view. One other important distinction that we see on these variables, some of them have these rulers at the top and some of them have these little bubbles. That is a coding that you would put into your data set so that SPSS knows which data variables are going to be quantitative or numeric and which ones are actually categorical. Because when you're using the menu up here to analyze your data, it's important for the program to know, for example, that these 1, 2, 3s, and 4s are just categories and not actually the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in the variable view, we have these drop downs under measure that allows us to put it as a scale variable, which is numeric, or put it as a nominal variable, which means it's just a category. So to get back to the questions we were asking here, we already looked at cases and variables by looking at rows and columns of our data set. We just wanted to identify 3 quantitative variables and 3 categorical variables, and so we went through the data set, and like age, height, and high school GPA are quantitative. Categorical would be grade classification, the hand you write with, which is left or right. We can see lots of 1s for right-handed, 2s are left-handers. Hair color, eye color, etc. And so there are a whole bunch more variables here. I asked students to guess how old I am. And it goes on to all those like 40-some variables. Then the next thing we look at is what is the sample here and what might be considered the bigger population. So the sample is my Stat 145 students. That's who actually completes the survey. What we might consider the population, maybe all Stat 145 students. Maybe we could extend that to be all students at UWL if we wanted. And then I asked students to name some other variables that we might have collected, and I actually have added a variable to the data set from that in the past, which is this last one, which is instrument. So the instrument variable is a category, which is do you play an instrument? With 1, I play 1 instrument, 2 is yes, I play 2 or more, and 3 are the people that do not play an instrument. So I just have students shout out other variables that I might have asked that are not in the data set, and then sometimes I actually add those to my questionnaire.